One of my favorite things to do if I'm not in school or working is to go hiking. And actually, one of my favorite trails here in Marquette is right across from my apartment complex. And it's actually pretty much right outside the NMU campus as well. But you would never know it as soon as you walk through the trees. It's nothing but fresh air and nature sounds. There are deer everywhere and squirrels and chipmunks. And it's just a really awesome place to see nature kind of just do its thing. Really, though, I have to take a plastic bag with me every time I go just because I know somewhere along the line on the trail I'm going to come across a discarded bottle or a can or a bag or takeout container, and I just can't leave it there. Um, I know inevitably that that will happen because plastic is just taking over our planet, and there's no doubt about it. We see it everywhere. And animals have become the face of the crisis. The first thing that comes to mind, though, is a video I've seen circulate on Facebook of a group of fishermen. They pull a sea turtle up into their boat and are trying to pry out a plastic straw from its nostril. And they are using pliers and pulling so hard, and you can tell that this poor turtle is just in pain, and it's heartbreaking. And then finally, they get it out, and blood just pours out of this animal's nose. And that's not the only case like this. It's heartbreaking, and there are animals, mostly marine animals, around the world that you see everyday videos and pictures of strangled in fishing nets or wire or plastic bags, having swallowed so much plastic they can't digest anything else. And that's just a norm today. That's what they live with in their environment. So animals have become the face of the plastic crisis, but I don't think a lot of people really know the impact that this has on actual human beings. As Americans, we like to believe that issues like a plastic crisis are either the only a problem for foreign countries or even created by other countries or other states, other nations, anyone but ourselves. But to be honest, it's an everyone problem. It's a them problem, it's an us problem, it's a you problem, it's a me problem. And to give you some background, until 2018, America was shipping nearly half of its plastic recyclables to China for processing. In 2018, China implemented a new purity standard, which outlawed the importation of the majority of our products that we were sending them. And you might think that this was the perfect time for America to kind of sit back, internalize the problem, think about where we could improve and rebuild infrastructure to help solve this problem at the source. But unfortunately, that's just not what happened. At that point, we started just shipping to some of the poorest countries in the world. Countries like Ethiopia, Laos, and Djibouti, just to name a few, became the new recipients of our garbage. And these are countries who are already reported to be mismanaging up to 70% of their own waste. So, what does this look like for countries like that? Well, when these products are imported to them, they're dumped in these giant dumping grounds, and members of that country are paid cents on the dollar to sort through manually all of our garbage and pick out the things that are recyclable and the things that are not. The things that are not recyclable ultimately get landfilled again. They end up in these giant dumping grounds, and inevitably, whenever weather comes through, storms, wind, it gets blown into their waterways and into the ocean, which get picked up by currents and taken around the world. And this is where we see a lot of our marine pollution come from. This makes it really easy for the US to kind of say that, oh, it's a them problem. This pollution is coming from this country. But really, it's all of the plastic that we have sent them, as well as many other countries around the world. The plastic that doesn't end up in a landfill, I can tell you firsthand, in a lot of these countries is burnt. I spent nearly a full year of my life in Africa, basically next door to a burn pit. And they burn everything, not just plastic, also garbage and the carcasses of dead animals and chemicals. And the second you walk outside, you are just hit in the face with an awful stench. And you're outside, your throat is raw, your nostrils and your eyes start to water and burn. And that's just from walking building to building. Now imagine being one of these people in these countries who is paid very little, but paid to sort through all of this garbage, and probably not with the correct or proper PPE that they need to protect themselves. But of course, the US knew that in their impoverished state, Who would turn down this type of work and this money that was coming in, of course? There's a gentleman by the name of David Katz, who is the founder and CEO of a company called the Plastic Bank, who actually has started to come up with a solution for some of these impoverished countries. He's come up with sort of a general goods store where people living in all of this garbage can collect their plastic that's building up around them, take it to one of these locations, and actually turn it in for either a money value, they can get that money back, or put it into a secure online account, or they can exchange it for necessary goods like cooking fuel or even building materials. The US hasn't taken on this specific company yet, but we do have similar things where bottle rooms in Michigan where you can take your cans and your plastic and your glass to, and they'll literally pay you for giving them your garbage. And it doesn't get much better than that. But the idea with the plastic bank is that someone in America or another country around the world can turn in their recyclables and have that money transferred to another account to possibly some other impoverished family around the world to help them. With the majority of the astounding facts and numbers and images that we see in other countries around the world being impacted by plastic pollution, you really don't have to look very far outside your back door to find the effects of it here in the United States. As I mentioned previously, we're lucky enough here in Marquette to have access to plenty of bottle rooms where you can take in your recyclables and actually be paid for them, which is great. It doesn't get better than that. But there are some communities around the world, Brooklyn, for example, who may not have the money or the infrastructure or a local government who is willing to take the time and effort to put into infrastructure for these types of things. And plastic builds up in those communities just like it does around the world. In several cities around the world, though, including New York City, they're starting to put bans on single-use plastic straws and shopping bags, which is great. But also we have to take into account those families around us who may not be able to afford the alternative. And what I mean by alternative is something reusable, either a cloth bag or a steel water bottle or glass Tupperware, things of that nature. But if you can't afford it, you can always reuse the single-use items that you currently have. Sometimes if I don't have a reusable bag to take with me to the grocery store, I'll save the plastic bags that I got from my previous trip and take them back with me on my next trip. It helps a lot. Just the idea is to prolong the usefulness of these items and delay them being sent back into the environment. What this really all boils down to is that we need to be more cognizant of the decisions that we're making, of the things that we're buying. We need to police ourselves, we need to police the people around us, and we need to look out for the people around us. If you know a family in your community or a person who just can't afford the alternative items that are going to help them if you can. Give them those things. If you can't help them personally, reach out to an organization, your local government, your officials, your representatives, or even your local grocery stores. Ask what they already have implemented. If they don't have anything implemented, ask them their plans, give them options, let them know that these other plastic bag bans and straw bans have been being made, and ask them if there's a way that we can get free products to the families that are in need in our community. Ask about those things, keep everyone else in your community in mind, and just try to make better decisions. Because these daily routine changes from us are just the beginning. If we want to see major changes made, we have to be more civically engaged directly with our governments and let them know that we demand legislation to be implemented that's going to not only stop the production of plastic for unnecessary products and single-use products at its source, but we need to re-implement legislation that has been taken away. So many legislative decisions have been made in recent years that protect the plastics industry and really just let the health of the planet and the global citizen go by the wayside. So we need to be more civically involved and be reaching out to our governments every chance we get to let them know that this is something we are demanding. And if we're going to enjoy the things that we enjoy today, like our oceans and our rivers and our forests and the trails that we walk on, we need to make sure that we have a government in office who really understands that that is a top tier priority for us as citizens. And we need to be electing officials who are going to be in office making tangible steps to a solution for this problem. We need to make sure that the end of this crisis is coming, whether it's in our generation, our grandchildren's, or the next. We need to make sure that steps are being made.